Good evening. My name is Enos Harris, Hearing Officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterward through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet. So if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider 3 items. Hearing Order 210361 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 2226 15th Street by Public Works. Staff approved the removal and the public has protested. This item has been rescheduled from the March 25th tree hearing. Hearing Order 210362 to consider the removal of 3 street trees with replacement with one 36-inch box tree adjacent to 1027 Clayton Street by the property owner. Permit number 794880. Staff approved the removal and the public has protested. Hearing Order 210363 to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement with one 36 box tree adjacent to 1027-1049 Clayton Street by the property owner. Permit number 795019. Staff approved the removals and the public has protested. My job as a hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make the final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. This hearing will proceed as follows for 3 cases. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. There is no time limit for this presentation. Then I will allow the property owner or appellant to speak. Then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you are a member of the public or witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments, then use Zoom's raise your hand feature if you're on a computer to put yourself in the queue to speak. If you are dialing in on your phone, dial *9 to indicate you are raising your hand. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the appellant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will then close the item. We will now begin the hearing. At this time, we will open the hearing to public comments. Members of the public may make comments on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. Are there any comments from the public at this time? Okay. So seeing none,
Miss Harris, we do
Yes.
actually, we have two hands, and I
Oh,
do also
why do I
have,
not have that view? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's okay.
Go ahead.
We have two hands, and then I
Okay.
also have a written comment to read as
Okay.
well.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to unmute the first person. Mr. Michael, I'm asking you to unmute yourself. That may be the device that he was unable to use earlier, so hold on just a moment.
I think I have unmuted. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. I will start now.
Okay.
Hello. My name is Michael Petrellis. It's spelled surname Petrelis. And today I am speaking about the very dangerous situation with cracked sidewalks and big holes at Jane Warner Plaza. I submitted a request through SF311 on Twitter for an immediate patching up of the pavement that is cracked and a serious danger to all pedestrians.
Mr. Michael, I'm so sorry. Are you able to unmute yourself again? Hello?
Hi,
I'm so
hope I've
okay.
unmuted.
Yes, yes, yes. You're on. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry about that. Go ahead.
It keeps going back. It keeps on. Oh,
No, we can hear you. We can hear
oh,
you.
okay. I'm sorry, I will take an extra 20 seconds
That's
because of that little lapse.
that's
Um,
okay.
the holes are located at Jane Warner Plaza, 17th and Castro Street. The situation has existed for years. We desperately need a crew to come out with the right concrete and tar materials to patch up these holes. And I am saying this because we had a press conference 2 weeks ago that made the Channel 2 news, and we had a lot of support to improve pedestrian safety at Jane Warner Plaza. Now, in my final minute, I want to say that we are very disappointed as gays in the Castro that a recent development. You presented privately presented a proposal for Jane Warner Plaza for like the next 10 years, and there was no public meeting about this proposal about installing a statue to poetry and what have you at Jane Warner. And so the public wasn't invited, and nothing in the report, because I filed a request for it, nothing in the report addresses the uneven pavement, the cracks in the pavement, and the terrible condition of the pavement. We need to have it repaved as soon as possible. So I hope that you will direct William Bulkley, the architect who's come up with this pipe dream of a plan for Jane Warner Plaza. You'll direct him to come up with solutions now to enhance pedestrian safety at Jane Warner Plaza. Thank you.
Thank thank you. Okay,
Thank
next
you.
next speaker.
Hi, good evening. I would like to state that I would like no rebuttals in the hearing. That only drags things out, and also because since the hearing officer said, quote unquote, that there didn't even discuss rebuttals, it only drags things out and also brings up information, and also there's a good time for, since you only said that the public can speak once, and when the rebuttals start, then the public doesn't have a chance to respond and or if other people chime in. Secondly, I want to congratulate the city for Earth Day and its celebrations this week throughout the city, various things that are happening and the greening that are happening in various districts because of monies that have come forward from the federal and state to help with the tree planting in the city. I hope everybody enjoys Earth Week and also enjoys the our climate this week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and I have, where did it go? I have something to read that was submitted for us or to us, or did you want me to read that? I already emailed it to you, Ms. Harris. The public comment from
Yes.
Joshua Clip.
Yes, I read that. So it's fine. You don't have to read it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I do not see any other hands at this time. Oh, there is one hand. I'm sorry.
If there was somebody that submitted something for public comment, it's only fair to hear it. And I also want to say, my name is Michael Nolte, and also want to say today is Earth Day, and it's kind of interesting that we're having a hearing about removal of trees when they are scarce in San Francisco. We seem to be losing our canopy, and it's kind of appropriate that we should be putting more trees in and not talking about how we're removing them, especially because of developers or other reasons that seem to find the need to remove trees and not necessarily add to our canopy in San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
What?
Okay, and so the public comment that we received
You can
is,
read it.
I'm pulling it up just a moment.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, it says at 13.7%, San Francisco has the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the United States, according to San Francisco Public Works. Other major U.S. cities average 25% tree canopy. In 2014, San Francisco issued an urban forest plan that called for the net addition of 2,500 street trees per year. In 2021, San Francisco issued a climate action plan that called for the net addition of 40,000 new street trees by 2040. According to the most recent San Francisco Urban Forestry Council report, since 2017, San Francisco has not net gained a single street tree. In fact, San Francisco has net lost 1,300 street trees. And this loss is set against a backdrop of severe underfunding for the planting and watering of new street trees. There is no money for street tree planting set aside in the annual city budget. The majority of funding for street tree planting comes from donations, in lieu fees, grants, and Prop K, a fund that is dwindling because it's tied directly to fossil fuel usage in a city increasingly featuring electric vehicles. The city's 2021 Climate Action Plan, a plan drafted in response to the city's 2019 declaration that we are in a climate emergency, also called for policy of preserving trees for construction and infrastructure improvements, and it called for this policy by 2023. The Climate Action Plan went on to say that in instances where a tree absolutely cannot be preserved, the city should have a policy for basal area replacement. Here we are in 2024, 3 years after this Climate Action Plan was released to much fanfare, and not a single city department has even started to embrace this aspect of the Climate Action Plan. Notably, the Climate Action Plan did not call for these policies because they were just nice to have. It called for these policies because they are a need to have as part of a larger plan for San Francisco's future climate resilience. According to our city's own plans, records, and reports, we're failing ourselves and our future by continuing to remove trees without exploring alternatives, allowing driveways and other ecosystem ruining infrastructure to permanently remove tree planting locations. And we're not coming close to replacing what we're taking out. It's against this backdrop of all this that I hope the department will consider the matters on tonight's agenda. And this statement came from Joshua Cliff.
Thank you. If there are no more comments for this item, I will close this item. Okay, this item is now closed. The first item on today's agenda is order number 210361. May I have Public Works make its presentation?
Hi, good evening. My name's Sarah Stacy. I'm an urban forestry inspector with Public Works, the Bureau of Urban Forestry. I want to thank all the attendees this evening for their time attending this hearing. We have 3 items to discuss and present. And thank you, Cerise, and the hearing officer as well. So I just want to provide kind of a short background information that provides a little bit of an explanation as to our framework for how we go about assessing and evaluating our tree removal applications, and how our team of inspectors and the urban forester, how we make decisions as far as evaluating the health and condition of street trees for retention or for removal in order to keep a clean and safe public right-of-way. That's one of our main goals and missions as a department, is to ensure a clean and safe public right-of-way and to protect and enhance really the green infrastructure that serves as a really critical asset as part of the public right-of-way. That's what our department's mission is all about. So our importance is to preserve and grow the urban forest while thoughtfully balancing the safety of the public right-of-way and also understanding the needs of a evolving and growing city. So just as a little bit of background information, almost 7 years ago now, the public voted for the city to take back responsibility for the maintenance and care of street trees. That program was initiated in 2017, July of 2017, called Street Tree SF, and it dedicates permanent funding, $19 million, for us to maintain the city's street trees, which is a population of about 125,000 trees. Perhaps a little bit more that were not inventoried as part of the census. And through that work, we have a maintenance schedule that has a cycle of every 3 to 5 years where we rotate through the city's neighborhoods and prune the street trees kind of on a block by block basis. We're almost finished with that first cycle of pruning. We anticipate finishing that work hopefully by the end of 2025, and then we can start the second cycle of tree maintenance. As Mr. Klipp alluded to, this program, Street Tree SF, it does not dedicate monies or funding resources to new tree planting. And so the department, we do have a challenge certainly in front of us to keep up with tree planting needs and also requests from the public. Because of the lack of funding and resources to not only plant the trees with staff available, but to water them is kind of what the bottleneck is as a resource that's needed. Not having the funding or resources to staff up and be able to water all those new trees through the establishment period, which is about a 3-year time period. Our work is codified under the Public Works Code, Article 16, and the Urban Forestry Ordinance establishes our authorization and our standards for addressing a wide range of issues, including the permits of planting and removing trees and installing green infrastructure in the public right-of-way. There were some important updates to the Urban Forestry Ordinance, Article 16, in February of 2022, already a couple of years ago. But those importantly require that the department, if it removes a tree for like street tree SF, routine removal, it's required to replace that tree within 120 days time, or our department has to add it to a delayed replacement tree report. If that tree cannot be planted back in the same location, we have to find a new location for it. And then additionally, when we do grant removal permits for the removal of trees for like construction projects, we are to require a replacement tree that is of equivalent value to the one that is removed, or impose an in lieu fee. So what that means is that our department often, we will use best practices and the 10th edition for appraising plants and trees as kind of guidelines for how we will determine that value of the tree that is proposed for removal. And that is the kind of mitigation that will be required should the removal permit be granted. So as an example, an owner will have to pay the difference between the appraised value of a subject tree minus the value of any replacement tree. We consider the value of a replacement tree to be based on the standard in lieu fee for a 24-inch box. And currently that value is $2,431. And it represents the cost of purchasing a 24-inch box size tree, installing it, and watering it for that 3-year establishment period. That's what that value represents. And then I just wanted to provide a little bit of summary for our removal criteria and how our team of inspectors and the urban forester, how we go about evaluating trees and tree removal permits for consideration. So we will approve a tree for removal if it is dead, dying, or not thriving. We will approve a tree for removal if it's a poor species for the location and it's just not going to be sustainable in the long term, and it will actually require more maintenance and perhaps even more of a larger carbon footprint to maintain it in that current condition or site that is not appropriate. We will approve a tree for removal if the tree is hazardous, and that can be a variety of things and descriptions, such as like branches that are at a permanent height that can't be removed, and pruning can't mitigate the hazard to improve the safety of the public right-of-way. And then we'll also, to be consistent, we will approve trees for removal if they are damaging private property. We do ask for photo documentation. Oftentimes we request a structural engineer's report. We request that permit applicant to provide a lot of documentation to support why the tree is damaging private property. Some other examples, if the tree or trees are relatively small and can be easily replaced or replaced in kind, oftentimes we'll approve those trees for removal. And then finally, some other considerations are if the tree will be destabilized by construction and the permit applicant has showed no feasible workaround. So we do request oftentimes a lot of documentation from architects or engineers and even construction foremen to demonstrate how they cannot work around trees and preserve them. And again, if for more of these construction-related permits, our staff, just as best practice, we will appraise the value of the tree to determine that equivalent replacement value. So to start with the first Public Works order, this is order 210361 to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement adjacent to 2226 15th Street. Our staff, we approved the removal of the tree and the public protested. This was a rescheduled item from the March 25th hearing. The subject tree is a ficus tree you'll see in the photo. It's a mature tree. Its height is about 35 to 40 feet. This is a Ficus microcarpa, a very popular species in the city. Many of the public are aware that beginning in around 2015, Public Works, we had an official order that designated removal criteria for ficus trees. It did not mean that every ficus needed to be removed, but it provides us with some guidelines, especially when we're doing our evaluation to go by for us to look at ficus case by case, tree by tree, and look at their condition and their structure to determine if the tree should be kept or if it is really a removal candidate. This ficus tree, it was rated by the inspector as being in fair health. You can see it has a very green, lush canopy. Oftentimes the public will think, that means the tree is healthy and safe, but we have to look kind of deeper and look more specifically at the structure of the ficus trees in terms of their branching unions, their points of attachment. And we know that these trees have shown a pattern of failures when they have codominant stems and what is called included bark. The inspector rated the tree structure as very poor and its form as poor. Why the form was rated as poor is because of what considered in arboriculture is the live crown ratio. So the tree, a healthy live crown ratio would be for the tree to have 50% of its crown in ratio to the tree's height, if you can imagine that ratio. Once you start dropping less than that 50%, the tree kind of in layman's terms would be considered top heavy, whereas all the leaf foliage matter is kind of at the end weight or at the ends of the branches, and it leaves these long lever arms susceptible to wind loads. And it just presents a weakness in the tree to have that live crown ratio less than 50%. The inspector noticed that this tree has decayed deadwood at the base of the tree, and I'll show a photo of that. And we suspect that there is additional decay in the roots, and this increases a probability of the tree failing in the future. And we also noted that the wound can make the tree more susceptible to a fungal infection and more deterioration, making that tree more of a risk. This location, it can be replanted, and we noted that if the tree is not replaced within that 120 days, we will add it to the delayed replacement report. So I'm just going to share some more images of the ficus tree. This is the base of the tree. On the left, you'll see the image shows that canker or large kind of pocket of decay that the tree was there at the base. And then on the right, you'll see some cracks forming from that pocket of decay. So we believe this tree, it's likely for this tree to fail within 5 years. This is just another image of that root basal decay. And then another image of that kind of decay column spreading up the tree. These images show the sidewalk condition. The sidewalk here, you can see it's been replaced a few times. That's, not why we're seeking the removal of this tree. This is a department evaluation of this tree that we want to remove. This is not for a construction permit. And the image on the right shows where the utilities are and that the tree can be replaced in this same location. To be consistent with other cases and other ficus trees, because of the tree's poor structure, and that pruning in this case is just not a good mitigation to improve the condition of the tree or reduce the risk of it failing because of that decay at the root base. Pruning isn't really a good mitigation option. So the department, we approved this tree for removal, and the public protested. In summary. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the appellant or applicant here to speak? I see a hand raised.
Hi there.
Hi, go ahead, Anna.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. I live just up the street from this tree, just up the block. And this is the first time I've called in. So first rodeo in that sense. So I want to go about this in the most obviously respectful and thoughtful way, especially with people's times. But I've been taking notes and I do have a few questions. But I think, yeah, first off, I'd like to say thank you so much for the time to speak. And I would like to reiterate that, yes, it is Earth Day, and that should weigh very heavily on all of these decisions, especially given all of the stats that everybody hopefully knows at this point about SF's canopy percentage and how low it is. So because I do live on 15th Street, just up the block from this tree, I do walk by it numerous times a day. And I've lived here for just over 3 years. And I haven't seen the tree change in any way in that sense. So I would just like to question the 5-year failing period. And also it is the largest and seemingly most, and therefore the most mature tree on the block. So I don't know if that's also potentially why it's maybe being targeted. But it's not close to endangering any structures, or it seems to be extremely healthy. It hasn't lost any branches, in storms. No reported damage. Also, I want to point out that it is springtime, and so a lot of birds, even in my own backyard, obviously are making nests. So wildlife, just like every other tree in the city, do use these trees. And right now, all the birds are building nests, and eggs will be hatching soon. And so I think it is a very unfortunate time too to be considering removal. Just for that fact too, because if we wanted to keep, wildlife healthy in the city too, I think that's important to note. And based on all of the stipulations too, it seems that we're trying to or the city's trying to, like, I don't know, find the
30
perfect
seconds.
find the perfect tree in that sense. And I don't know that that's possible because it is Mother Nature. And it said on the flyer that it was diseased. But I would love to notify, like, see some proof of that. I mean, yes, I just saw the pictures and everything, but none of that seems to be diseased. And I know you said the roots, potentially have some decay in them. But if there's been no breakthrough to the ground, then how can they tell if the roots are diseased? Also, if you said the tree was top heavy and the live crown ratio, then I would petition to see if we could do maybe cut off a branch or trim at the top, which seems way more viable and actually healthier for the tree than obviously cutting it down.
Thank you, Anna. That's your time.
Oh,
Ms.
okay.
Harris.
I do have. Should I email the rest of my points? I just have a few more. Should I email?
Yes.
Or okay, what's the email for that?
I have placed it in the chat, and it is also urban forestry at sfdpw.org.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm looking at the chat and I don't see that.
There should be a message that goes to everyone in the chat. Please send all written testimony or further comments to urban forestry at sfdpw.org.
Okay, thank you. I will.
I'll place the message again. Maybe you came on after I had sent it out.
Yeah, I've been here the whole time. It doesn't show. It says 2 hosts and panelists, but nothing's in there. But that's okay. I wrote it down.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Is there an appellant or is the applicant or appellant here to speak? Okay. Are there any members of the public who wish to make comments?
I think the applicant just raised their hand. Just a moment.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening. Go ahead, please.
I don't know if I'm the applicant, but I live at 2224 15th, which the trunk of the tree is technically in front of 2226 15th, but the canopy is in front of both buildings. And so I'm as I've been looking at this beautiful tree for the 25 years that I've lived at that address. I have to counter the previous speaker because this tree is the first thing I see when I open my door many times a day, and unfortunately, it has declined significantly in the last 5 years or so. The neighbors at 2226 and I have both made repeated reports to the city, and the city has been watching the tree and seeing its decline. It has declined further since the photos that you're showing have been taken. There's a lot of branches now with no leaves that I can see from my upper story windows. It's looking poorer than in this photo. And the crack that was shown in one of the photos has definitely worsened. It wasn't even there 5 or so years ago, and it gets bigger with every year that passes. We've seen what happens with these ficus trees, and I think there's imminent risk of damage to the public and to private and public property. The other thing that I would point out is that in the right-hand picture that you can see now, the light colored sidewalk square with the big crack in it is raised about 2 inches on the edge that's closest to the photographer, and 2 inches horizontally from that, you can see the little box on the left where the water meter is. That's where the water main for my building runs through. And I think it's got to be at imminent risk of being broken by the tree roots should they grow any larger. Now, I feel like the tree is in decline now, so maybe the roots are no longer growing. But that's another big risk of property damage, which ultimately the expense of which would fall on the city if that were to happen. Nobody wants there not to be a tree in this well, and I can guarantee you that my neighbors and the folks in the building I live in will dutifully water and take care of the replacement
30
tree
seconds.
that we expect to go in this spot. This has been a beautiful tree. It's still in many ways a beautiful tree, but it's at the end of its life, and it needs to be removed before it hurts or kills someone or causes significant property damage. So I appreciate the city doing the right thing, and we will love and take care of the new tree that replaces it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other comments from the public? Any other members from the public wish to make comments? I see a couple of hands raised.
Yes, good evening. Since this is a ficus tree, we have dealt with ficus trees all over the city, 14th Street, 16th Street, Hayes Valley, Mission, 24th Street, and most of those trees that you wanted to take out had now been saved and are not necessary because of during the hearing process and because of arborists and other entities coming forward. Majority of those ficus trees were not taken out and they were trimmed. And now you're saying that they shouldn't. Now, nobody's showing a picture of the street of 15th Street with both sides of the street having ficus trees on it. So therefore, you can see that both sides of the street already have ficus trees in this neighborhood. And this is just the city. Main reason is to eliminate ficus all over the city. And doing so, you're not putting them in, you're only taking them out. And the reason you're taking them out is because they're one of the largest trees and wood. And also, as was stated by Stacy, you're now at the end of your cycle of pruning for the whole city. And you've taken out hundreds of these ficus trees throughout the city. And nobody seems to know why. Some of them were fine, and there was no reason to do so. So again, and no hearings too. Some of them. So I find question about what some go to the hearing, some don't go to hearing, and then I only find out when I start to look around and find out, oh, they're gone. So this is the problem I have about because this is in front of a property owner that's been complaining for 5 years. So it gets to a hearing, and it's the second time we've heard this agenda item. So I'm concerned about why we keep on, this has to be heard twice because it was mentioned was at a prior in the March hearing. So why are we still here, and why are we still talking about the same tree? And all I hear is somebody observation of what he thinks the tree is happening to the tree, and that it's not is a hazard to the public. So other than that, every tree is a hazard to the public because that's Mother Nature. So thank you. And on Earth Day, we should be thinking a little bit more about preserving things. And I didn't hear about a giant tree going in or anything.
30 seconds.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Is there another comment from the public? Okay, Michael Nolte, go ahead.
Hi. First of all, during the presentation, there was no discussion of a replacement or the size. So that I would ask the hearing officer to request that information if there is anything that's been decided or discussed around the replacement. Second, you know, when a street is balanced with uniform trees, it looks nice. But when you start putting tree plots that look different because it's been replaced. First of all, whatever is going to be replaced, if that does happen, will not be the same size or structure, and it will take many years to get to where this tree has been because it's been referred to as a mature tree. I don't know if it's the maturest tree, meaning it still has potential growing further. It's just the nature of a tree for the sidewalks to buckle. So that's no biggie. That's just a matter of fixing the sidewalk. As far as the water main, you know, that's not, it shouldn't be really the issue of the any real issue until it happens. So I mean, you could say a lot of what ifs, and what ifs, but it's kind of funny. In both pictures that are currently on the screen, you have a city car under the tree, and you know, if the city was really concerned about the tree, they won't be parking under it. So that really answers the question about what's going on with the tree. Nothing. Thank you, and happy Earth Day.
Thank you, Mr. Nosey. Are there any other? Oh, I see another hand.
There's no additional hands. That's the person that spoke earlier.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So if there are no other comments on this item, I will now close the item. And I will make my recommendation to to the director. The next item on today's agenda is 210362. To consider the removal of 3 street trees with replacement with one 36-inch box tree adjacent to 1027 Clayton Street by the property owner. Permit number 794880. Staff approved the removal and the public has protested. I will ask, Public Works, please present your, please make your presentation. I'm sorry, Public Works, please make your presentation.
Thank you. This is Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry, Public Works. This is the tree, one of the trees at 1027 Clayton Street. This is a deodar cedar. Cedrus deodara is the species. It is a street tree, meaning it is in the public right-of-way and it's protected as a street tree. A removal permit is needed. The applicant applied to remove this tree for their construction project, new construction of a building. This tree's height is approximately 55 feet. It has a 30-inch DBH, and our inspection team rated the condition as poor to fair for the species. Keep that in mind. If you can imagine what a almost ideal perfect specimen is, that's what our conditions are based on. This would be a poor fair version of that species. The noted deficiencies included overextended branches and also a poor location where it's situated in the public right-of-way, very close to the private property line. And explain a little bit more about its location of kind of where and how it is growing in the site conditions. We noted that the tree is planted in the middle of the sidewalk. It's not adjacent to the curbside as traditional street trees are usually planted. And it's not, absolutely on the property side as well. It's kind of in the middle of the public right-of-way. And as I mentioned, as far as the poor location, the tree is planted a little bit above the grade of the sidewalk. And this can kind of create problems as far as any construction, or also the longevity of the tree and the tree roots being able to access air and being compacted from the surrounded sidewalk as well. This image on the left, you can imagine behind the ivy there shown, the pink lines represent the actual outline of the tree trunk. And along there is a 1.5 foot tall elevation that the tree is planted at the top of that height. So the tree is not planted at grade, and so its soil volume is limited and bounded and hindered by this growing area. Certainly roots can grow deeper below the sidewalk area in the adjacent public right-of-way. But generally those tree roots, especially with compacted soil, which we have all over the city and in the public right-of-way, those tree roots are going to struggle to find the air and soil space that they need to be able to, one, stabilize the tree for its size, and then two, also allow it to get the water it needs to support itself. The required construction activity has a high likelihood of destabilizing the tree roots, which also increases the likelihood of this having a root failure. This tree, we appraised it having a value of $6,800 using the functional replacement method, the trunk formula technique. That's basically a formula based on the tree condition and taking into consideration some subjective considerations for the limitations of the physical site that we explained that tree's growing in, and the external environmental conditions of the city kind of as a whole, different pests that can affect that tree, and that tree just being in that site and context as a growing space. The project, I'll allow them to talk about their plans, but they plan to replace the tree with one 36-inch box tree. And because multiple trees on this frontage, there will not be sufficient space for because of conflicts with utilities and our planting guidelines, they will have to pay an additional in lieu fee of $3,500 to make up that equivalent value should this removal permit be granted. The frontage is replantable with a medium stature species, and that location will be reconfigured so that the street tree will exist adjacent to the curbside. Is kind of the traditional location for a street tree. In summary, our staff, because of the location of that tree, and because likely the construction planned and approved by the planning department will likely destabilize that tree, we approve this tree for removal, and the public protested. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The property owner or applicant available to speak?
Hello, this is Roy Leggett. I'm a consulting arborist and I'm hired by the property owner. First of all, I want to let you know that I provided an arborist report for the trees in the front of this property. Ms. Stacy didn't mention that there are two other trees there as well that are on the application. One of them is a small, well, it's actually a stump sprouting plum that's behind and in that ivy mess. And the other one is to the south or to the left, which is a Eugenia, which is overgrown by ivy. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is clear that those are the other two trees, and they're not even really visible because of the overgrowth of the ivy. But they're anyway, they're gonna end up being part of the application. As far as the details, they're in my report and fundamentally in agreement with the city arborists who've looked at the tree. And so we are in support of the Bureau of Urban Forestry assessment. Thank you, Sarah, for going through that. It was a good assessment for the cedar. Yeah. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with, and I think it's been summarized very well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
This is Sarah Stacy with Bureau of Urban Forestry. I apologize. I thought this was the last slide. I do have some additional slides if Public Works is allowed to finish.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, apologize. Thank you, I'm sorry. The two other trees, as Mr. Leggett mentioned, so we have two other street trees. We have a prunus species of flowering plum. It's a multi-stem tree here shown in the image on the right within the circle. It's been overgrown by ivy. It sits close to the property line, but it is a street tree because it's located in the public right-of-way. It has a height of about 25 feet, and based on all those stems, we estimated its DBH to be about 19 inches. We rated the condition as poor fair for that species, and we noted its deficiencies as having codominant stems, so weakly attached branches. It's in a poor location. It has poor structure and form, and just overall probably a lack of maintenance and care. The tree is planted in the middle of the sidewalk. It's not, again, adjacent to the curb like your traditional street trees, and it's planted above the sidewalk grade as well. These are just some other images showing that poor structure of the tree, the multiple kind of branches and stems arising from that main trunk. And then it's been kind of just overgrown with ivy, so it's hard to see some of that structure as well. And then it's in the raised soil above the grade of the sidewalk. And because of its location being so close to the private property line, it would likely be destabilized from the construction impacts, and it's just not recommended as a tree to be preserved based on its condition. This tree, we appraised it as the standard value, so it may have even appraised less than the standard value or in lieu fee. So if that's the case, we use the standard in lieu fee of the $2,431, and that should be paid as the in lieu fee. As we mentioned, that frontage, it won't be possible to replace or replant multiple trees because of the utility conflicts and also because of our requirements for spacing between trees. So in lieu fee, the standard amount will have to be paid as the mitigation for the removal of this tree. And then the final tree, as mentioned, is a Eugenia species, also considered to be called brush cherry. This is not a very popular species in the city, but it can do well in certain locations. This tree is approximately 30 feet in height. You can see it there in the middle of the image in the yellow circle. It has a DBH of approximately 6 inches. So while tall, it is a smaller DBH. We rated it in fair condition for that species. Again, it is in a poor location because of its location in the public right-of-way in the middle of the sidewalk, and it being above grade. It's been suppressed by that adjacent tree, the Deodar cedar. So that also affects its appraised value in the site context for where it grows, and its ability to kind of reach its, full qualities or full characteristics for that species. It's just been growing as much as it can kind of coexist with all those other trees and vegetation. And again, all these trees are going to be, likely impacted by the construction that's been approved as part of the site plan for this project. And that construction work will likely destabilize the trees, making them unsafe, but also making them unhealthy. And we, as a department have to recognize the scope of the proposed work can't be completed with the trees in their current location. This tree, again, it appraised less than the standard in LUFI, so we're just using the standard in LUFI to capture that mitigation value for the equivalent value lost. And I apologize again, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me finish those 2 additional trees. Just to summarize, this permit is for the removal of 3 trees. Our staff, Public Works, we approved the removal of the trees and the public protested. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Waiters, are there any, is the property owner available to speak? Any other representatives from the actual property?
Yes, just one moment. They just raised their hand.
Go ahead, Ty.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for hearing this item. And thank you, Ms. Stacy, for the summary, as well as for Roy for talking about the other two trees. The only thing that I really wanted to add is that these 3 trees are planted very, very closely together and would not be planted this closely together if they were properly planted as trees. These were, this is an undeveloped parcel, or hasn't been developed until this point. And these trees have been here for, I think, however many years, planted by the previous property owner, and really have not been maintained properly as they've grown. The base of these trees is above the sidewalk. We will be replanting a 36-inch box in size, and also pay really an lieu fee for the equivalency of 3 trees to be planted elsewhere in San Francisco. And finally, the removal of these trees will allow for the construction of 2 family-size units on a vacant lot, which the city is encouraging. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Go ahead, John Nolte. Unmute yourself. There you go. Thank you.
Yes, good evening. I find it very interesting that you divided this item number 4 and number 5, which are the same, on the same block, on the same side, and next to each other, both from the same developer, even though they were done a year or so apart. So combining them together, doing two parcels on the same block, eliminating all these trees on both these parcels, and not putting them together and actually separating them, and then talking about them individually, and also no description at all or presentation on what is going in onto the site. So I find that lacking in this presentation, that I had to do my own research on the 2 townhouses that are going in, multi-million-dollar houses on these vacant lots. And this is like the last, assuming they have the money to build on both properties. And sometimes what has happened in the past, that developers, when they get into this phase, then they sell because they don't have the money, or because of market change, they cannot get the money to develop the properties. I wish to hear that DPW actually gets into the really meat of the things, and actually, before you issue a permit, find out if they actually have the millions of dollars that they need to develop these parcels, instead of just handing over and just getting your money for the tree, but not knowing whether or not these parcels are actually going to be developed in the permit time of 3 years for your permit. So I have a lot of questions about why this is going on. It's got nothing to do with the trees are fine. You seem to have this issue of, I've never seen a tree ever in a presentation by you saying good, great specimens. They always seem to be fair or poor. And as a matter of fact, in all your databases, fair or poor. So you haven't, that's a general description of all the ones in your database. So I find that kind of ironic that you limit all the trees in San Francisco in that category. So to me, this is not a slam dunk. This is just a problem for developing a site to so they if they have the money. And if they don't have the money, then I don't think they should move forward. Thank you very much. And on Earth Day.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm another speaker. I appreciate the developer wanting to put up basically 3 townhouses on two different addresses, including the next agenda item. Yes, San Francisco needs more housing. Yes, developers like to get probably good deals on property and decide to somehow turn a profit. But the losers are always the trees, and obviously the previous owner to this property did what they did with the property, and these trees somehow for many years. So that meant that the previous property owner had the site for many years, had these trees, and maybe at the time it wasn't an issue about where the trees needed to be located. It seems to me now what's going to happen is when these 2 townhouses go on this specific agenda item, they're going to be blocking the entrance from all the construction, and that's really the issue here. It has nothing to do with the fair or poor or all the other things that they talk about, what's wrong with the trees. It has to do really that the construction needs to happen because we now are the new property owner, and we have plans for the site. Regardless if we have the money or not, we will knock down these trees, or at least have the city knock down the trees, and we will proceed somehow with our permits, or if not, we'll sell the property to another entity that will do the project because all the permits have been approved. And we've seen this time and time again, regardless of who the developer is. We've even seen large development people that seem to have lots of money take time to deal with their financing. And we don't know, because they keep that a secret, whether or not they have the money or not. And but yet the permits are the first thing they have to do. And of course there's also a demolition permit. So
20 seconds.
All right. Well, anyway, happy Earth Day. Too bad we're losing 3 trees, and we should be gaining more trees in this development. That should have been the part of the settlement on this, and not just take the money and run on everybody's got a handout here. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another hand?
No, there are no other hands.
Okay. So if there are no more comments on this item, I will close this item. This item is now closed. The final hearing for this evening is 210 363, to consider removal of 2 street trees with replacement with 136-inch box tree adjacent to 1047 to 1049 Clayton by the property owner. Permit number 795019. Staff approved the removals and the public has protested. Public Works. May I have Public Works make its presentation?
Thank you. This is Sarah Stacy, Bureau of Urban Forestry, Public Works. This is an additional removal permit for the address in parcel listed as 1047, 1049 Clayton Street. We do require applicants to file a removal permit for individual parcels for the adjacent street trees or significant trees related to that individual parcel. This is one of the 2 trees. This is a eucalyptus species. It is a street tree, again, because it's in the public right-of-way. Just some qualities of the tree. It's approximately 35 feet in height. It has a DBH of 22 inches. We rated the condition as fair. It does have codominant stem structure, which sometimes we rate that as a deficiency because of the poor branch union or poor branch attachment, which just means the tree can have an increased likelihood of failure for that tree part. The tree is also leaning. It has that established lean as it projects out from the property line over the public right-of-way. It's also planted in kind of the middle of the sidewalk. It's not at the adjacent curb like your traditional street tree. And because of the proposed construction, this tree is not recommended for preservation. It's likely that construction would destabilize the tree roots and affect its health long term. Just some additional images of the tree. You can see the tree's canopy here. It is a tree we rated again as in fair condition. It appears, to look healthy. It has, green foliage and leaves. It has, a little bit of thinning, which may be common to this species, especially after years of drought. And maybe just the tree is, could be in, show areas of, decline or pockets of dieback, but overall rated as fair. But why we approved the tree for removal is, again, because of the required construction is likely to destabilize that tree. And the scope of the proposed work can't be completed with that tree in its current location. Our staff, we appraised the value of that tree at $2,500, so $2,500 using the functional replacement method. And again, that's basically a systematic way for arborists to go about rating the condition and health of the tree in a numeric sense. And then also considering the tree in terms of its site context and the conditions of the environment, and also the greater environmental situation around the tree as far as, years of drought or pest diseases that are in the area. To replace this tree with equal value, the project will plant one 36-inch box street tree adjacent to this parcel. The frontage is replantable with a medium stature species. I believe there are some London plane trees on this street, and the new tree will be located adjacent to the curb side as kind of a traditional street tree. The second tree is a Melaleuca species, a bottlebrush street tree. You can see here in kind of the middle of the screen. It's approximately 20 feet tall. It is a street tree. It has a DBH of 5 inches and rated in fair condition. It's leaning as well, and we just noted its deficiency is kind of just being in a poor location. Again, planted in the middle of the public right-of-way. Again, why our staff approved this tree for removal for the permit is because of the proposed construction activity will likely destabilize the tree roots and cause the tree to go into decline. Just another image of that tree. It's hard to really make it out among the other vegetation growing there along the public right-of-way and property line. But again, the scope of the proposed work that's been approved by the planning department through the site permit, it cannot be completed with these trees in the current location. And based on our arborist professional opinion, we do not believe these trees are suitable for preservation. This tree most likely appraised for less than the standard in lieu fee. So we are going to require that standard fee, $2,431, to be paid to the adopted tree fund to basically capture the mitigation for its removal as the equivalent value. That's all I have for this case, this permit. Our staff, we approved the removal of those 2 trees because of the construction is likely to destabilize them, and their roots will be affected by the construction work, and they do not present to be good preservation candidates for street trees. 1 tree will be replaced, a 36-inch box, and we will collect 1 in lieu fee as well for the loss of the 2nd tree. Thank you.
Thank you, Public Works. Is the owner or applicant available? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Ty Bash again. I wanted to thank Ms. Stacy and also to the public for general knowledge. These 2 lots are owned by separate different individuals. I am representing the project owner. This is a complicated project, and the process of building new housing for individuals who wish to build homes for themselves or multi-unit buildings for themselves is complex, so I am assisting with this. The department requires separate applications for separate lots. These are separate lots. As far as the history of the previous owner, they have simply took 9 feet out of the public right-of-way and adopted it into their private garden, which was leaving 6 feet of a public right-of-way for the public. We will resolve that and return the sidewalk to a 15-foot wide sidewalk, properly plant the 36-inch street tree in the neighborhood pattern as the other trees, and are hoping to improve the sight of the street as well as the condition of the street trees within it, while building, again, 2 new family-size housing units on a single vacant lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there another property owner or representative of the property to speak? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Roy Leggett. I'm the consulting arborist who Mr. Bash hired to look at these trees as well. And thank you, Ms. Stacy, for the presentation. As an arborist, I fundamentally agree with the department and their assessment and appraised values, and support the work that you've done. As far as an additional fact that may be, well, I think it might be valuable for the public to know this. These trees are located in a planter that is about 18 inches below the grade of the sidewalk. And there's a 12-foot high retaining wall on private property just beyond these trees. So they're in this elevated planter area, but well below the grade of the sidewalk, where even if we wanted to keep them there, the grade change to put a sidewalk in would preclude us being able to do that. So I do have an arborist report that should be available and on file that describes that for your records as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there another property representative? Okay, any members of the public want to speak?
Good evening. So we have an interesting situation here in which everybody it's been stated that these trees are in the middle of the sidewalk. Well, they're not really in the middle of the sidewalk. It's just that the two vacant lots decided that they would put these trees in their front yard. And that's basically what they did. They put them in their front yard. So they are not in the middle of the sidewalk. They just happen to be in the front yard of the properties. And then also was not discussed on either of these properties that there are multiple trees besides the street trees on these lots. So we're losing a lot of greenery for this block for these two 4 buildings, or how many buildings you put in, to be put in. So that is the issue. We are losing mature trees just on the sidewalk, and then other trees within the property, inside the property lines, for the construction of these 2 or multiple buildings that separate, as was stated, separate property owners want to build. But I don't understand how a family would want more than one building for themselves. That don't make sense to me unless you have a very large family that you have to have multiple bedrooms, houses, 2 flights. You know, again, since it wasn't described how big these buildings are going to be and how many units are going to be in each one. It's the townhouses, like 4 units, 5 units. How many units are going in? So that was lacking in the presentation. It wasn't presented by the Bureau. It didn't show the property lines, how actually these are outside the property line, and how close are any other trees or bushes near the property line. They're also going to be possibly taken out because of this construction, and driveways, all the other things that are going to go in, because now they want to develop these nicely preserved lots on this nice hill, and going to have a nice view now of the Castro. So I question the integrity of this hearing, of how that is not helping the greenery of the city and county of San Francisco, and also it's not helping the house.
30 seconds.
With the price of these buildings that are going in, and it's detrimental to the health and welfare of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Are there any other comments from the public? Okay, Michael Nolte, go ahead.
Hi. What was mentioned in a previous hearing item? This is spring. The birds, the bees, everything else is about on and about. I live in a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of trees, and but I do have a balcony, and the birds have been on my balcony all day today. Every half hour, there's another bird coming in, and they need a place to sit, so they come sit on my balcony. So I mean, and I live in a neighborhood with not very many trees. I mean, here, this neighborhood that's being discussed, because I'm a native San Franciscan, so I know what's in all the neighborhoods of San Francisco, because I've been, in and around, and I'm a senior, so I know these neighborhoods. It's going to have a great view once these developers have developed these 2 lots. It's going to be premium place because obviously for some reason these lots have been vacant for some time. So these will be new construction. So there'll be what they'll probably sink in $1 million each for each project or housing unit, and they'll sell it for over $3 million. So they're going to triple their cost at the loss of all the greenery that are on each lot. So this is how it goes. So they'll put in it's all about money, and the city gets their share with these permits. There are other permits that anytime a development happens. So everybody's happy because everybody's getting a piece of the action of the, except for the two neighbors that are going to be on either side. They're going to be putting up with sometime, a large amount of construction. That's probably why they're not on this call, because they don't want to rock the boat, or they've, or maybe made some agreements with the developer. But, we're here about the trees. This is a tree permit, and but yet there's a lot of greenery. It's like a miniature park being torn out.
30 seconds.
So basically a miniature park, and it's being torn out. So I'm sure the kids in the neighborhood have been in and out of that lot. I know when I was a kid, I loved the smell of eucalyptus, and that's one of the trees that are going. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Are there any other comments? If there are no more comments for this item, I will close this item. This item is now closed. Are there any public comments on any items of the agenda? This is for people who may have come in late or did not have a chance to speak. Okay. If there are no more public comments, I am closing this hearing. This hearing is now closed.